So believe it or not, a lot of old music that you might hear on streaming services today actually sounds a lot worse than it did originally. And it's partly the streaming service's fault, and it's partly remastering. So let's break this down. What exactly is a remaster? So a remaster takes the 2-track stereo file, the original recording, and just puts it back through modern gear. While this process is happening, the engineers might adjust the stereo field, the low end, smooth out the frequencies with the modern gear that they're using to get this track remastered. It's kind of like taking a photo and applying a new filter to it to make it a little bit more vibrant. And the problem with this process is sometimes applying that filter to the music brings out a lot more detail, and sometimes it just makes it sound so much worse. And this is where the streaming services come in, because when a track gets uploaded, no matter what the loudness levels are at, they've been raised through this remastering process, Spotify will just bring them all the way back down to whatever they think is normal. So then what happens is a track that's been pushed really loud and has lost all the dynamics then gets completely squashed through the streaming compression process, and you get left with an old classic that sounds like it was recorded through a potato. And so you might put on a classic record from the 50s or 60s, and you expect this warmth and this dynamism from, a live band performance before any of the tech came in. And what you get is this really harsh, abrasive, tinny mix that just doesn't sound like it's what the artist intended at all. And of course, this isn't an issue with the way that the track was mixed or the way that the parts were played by the musicians. It's this problem of the remaster plus the streaming normalization. It squashes the life out of the track. And so you go on streaming and you see an album that's been re-released, remastered, and you see the little remastered tag next to each of the songs, and you expect something that sounds better, but it really just sounds a little bit louder. And oftentimes the artists themselves have nothing to do with this process. The label or whoever owns the track will take this stuff and get it thrown through the remaster process and hung out to dry on Spotify. And the artists have got nothing to do with it. And it goes to show that digital doesn't automatically mean you get clarity, and clarity doesn't automatically mean that you translate all of that musicianship. And you can actually go back to these original versions of the tracks, whether they're early CDs or early vinyl pressings, and you just get so much more depth of space and clarity and dynamic range that has completely been squashed out of the new stuff. So obviously, if you want to hear some of these classics the way that they were meant to be heard, you have to go digging a little bit to find early CDs or early vinyl pressings where they weren't so pressured to keep up with the demands of the digitizing world. So it's not really true for my generation, but for someone that's probably 20 years older than me, you might have grown up with this track that you've always known and loved, and it's felt and sounded a certain way. That remastered version or the newer version that is updated on the streaming services, it just sounds a little bit thinner, a little bit more dull, and you know why. It's the process of putting all of this stuff through the remaster, through the modern gear, and then that modern mix gets taken and put onto streaming, and it's just... And that means that sometimes the best version of your favorite track is not the one that you can listen to on the computer. It's the one that is sitting on that dusty vinyl that you've had for 40 years. You just need the right sound system to hear it.